I'm Chip Felkel. I'm the CEO and founder of the RAP Index, which is a public affairs focused influence identification software. That's a fancy term for helping organizations, large and small, Fortune 500s down to state associations, find their very best messengers that they can use in advocacy, communications, earned media, and a variety of things having to do with policy and legislative issues.
And why did you get started in this business? What was the reason that you felt compelled to get, to launch RAP Index and to do what you're doing?
Well, I'm a 30-year veteran of the public affairs community, political and public affairs advocacy campaigns. I have a long history in working with a wide variety of large organizations, small organizations, helping them advance their messaging. And we realized over time how many of our clients didn't have a good grasp on something very valuable, something very important. And that is the relationships that their stakeholders have with elected officials, with policymakers, with key staff. They're paying exorbitant amounts of money to lobbying shops and high-profile consultants, when in fact their best, most powerful weapon might be just down the hall, and they didn't know that that relationship existed. So we created the RAP Index as a way to efficiently and effectively identify not just who has a relationship, but what the breadth and scope of the relationship is, what we call advocability, their willingness and ability to engage, and then what's their own personal political capital in terms of where else they can be influential on behalf of the client. That all comes into a database that is at their fingertips that folks can now use and leverage and deploy.
I'm familiar with your business, so I'm tracking where you're going with this. Can you give me a scenario? And I know now is a good time for your business with all the seat changes going on in politics, but can you give me a scenario of where this becomes incredibly useful for an organization? Maybe if you've got a customer story you want to share, but just kind of when the rubber meets the road, boots hit the ground, what is it that RAP Index is, what is it that it's uncovering? What is it that it's allowing your clients to actually make happen?
Sure. We had a situation, I'll give you a good example of a client just last year. In the middle of budget battle, there was an opportunity for them to have some language inserted in Washington into a bill that would then put millions of dollars into their industry. And this happens to be a retirement community, that sector, healthcare. The notification that they had the opportunity to do that came out late on a Friday afternoon, with a markup on the bill on Monday morning. And because they were able to access their data and see that they had relationships with chiefs of staff to two of the key members of the committee that was going to oversee that, over the course of 48 hours, they were able to reach out to those chiefs of staff because they had a personal relationship with them, have a conversation, and the language was inserted and the client was successful. That's one example. We've stopped legislation before it got started. Because someone has an idea doesn't mean it's necessarily a good one, and oftentimes they don't understand exactly what someone's convinced them to submit in terms of legislation, in terms of what the reaction to that will be, or what will be the reciprocating, what will be the fallout to certain pieces of legislation. So our clients are able to get the meetings, to get the conversations, to get the dialogue that they might not normally be able to get, particularly in the dead of the night, or in this case, it was over a weekend, where they have that access point, because we found the access points for them to actually have those valuable conversations.
And I think that seems to be kind of in many cases the nature of the beast, where they try to propose something to pass very quickly, and the time window that you have to act is limited. So you have to be able to act fast, know where to go, who to reach. And I'm not nearly as well versed as this, but I'm guessing that speed and the ability to accelerate people's ability to make things happen is probably one of the reasons, which is the next point. And I know the bigger a business gets, and particularly in certain industries, things tend to move slowly. who needs you the most? Who benefits the most from Rap Index? Like who's got the most to gain from this type of solution?
Well, I think it's certainly helpful to organizations that don't have massive governmental affairs staffs, don't have large budgets for their advocacy or government relations teams or large communications teams. So mid-sized groups certainly would probably be the first target for us in terms of who we could provide the most value to. They have issues just like everybody. Everybody's got issues at the state legislature or in Washington, but they may not have the bandwidth. And what we're able to provide is valuable information and data that means they don't have to have the same bandwidth as maybe some of their competitors because they can tap into the data that we provided and get those touch points that they may not have even known existed.
All right. And what does this mean for the employees and the team members that are involved? Is this something that they get introduced to as part of, their onboarding as a new hire? Do they get engaged when the need arises and they get tapped into as part of the database? Do they get to raise their hand and get involved proactively? Like what from a employee, a team member standpoint, what does this really mean for them? Is if I'm joining an organization now and I have, a horse in the race, I have an interest in this type of thing, how do I get involved? Does Rap Index take care of that, or what is that?
Well, one of the beauties of the system that we developed is that we assess through a universe of stakeholders. So that might be an alumni association, it might be 10,000 employees, it might be 5,000 association members. Oftentimes there are people within organizations that would like to get engaged, would like to participate in this process. And the C-suite doesn't know that because these aren't the usual suspects that they would turn to. So one of the things about our process is that we identify who has a propensity to get involved, who has a comfort level of being engaged in the public policy space, who wants to do that. Some clients do use this as a part of their onboarding for new hires. As part of they recognize that public policy and legislative affairs is something that can affect the long-term future of the organization. So some clients will use this as part of an initial intro to the organization. Some clients have not done so, but now are going back and surveying their membership or their employees, and they're identifying in a no harm, no threat, no right answer, no wrong answer approach, and an objective assessment of where there are authentic relationships with these key people, these key elected officials in this case, who has a comfort level of engaging, so that we're asking people to then do things they've already agreed to do. We find people who have relationships with local, state, federal officials and aren't willing to use them. The client needs to know that as well. We find people who have relationships with their congressman, but not their state senator. That's okay. We find people who don't have relationships, but want to get engaged. And that's part of what the Rap Index can also offer is training, guidance, management to those individuals, to those organizations in a managerial consulting role, where we kind of organize what we call a SEAL team for advocates, where we have identified these people, we have vetted them through our process. We're not wasting time on the people that don't care, and we can get this SEAL team of engaged, ready, educated warriors, if you will, on behalf of the organization, so that they can be deployed whenever they need to be.
I love that. That makes total sense. I love the SEAL team analogy because just like whether it be in the folks who want to get involved in marketing, but they're not in a marketing role, but they want to advocate for the business, they're in there. There's people in the organization that want to be a megaphone and that want to be an ambassador and an advocate. But if they don't have, one, the ability to raise their hand, and two, the tools and the guidance to participate, they can't,
Right.
It's just one way that you're not leveraging your workforce. I guess my next curious thing is, now I know that we're starting a new political season. So you've got this whole year ahead of you, plus I'm sure a million other things going on entrepreneurially. And then, we all got a fair amount on our plate right now, but what does 2021 look like for you? What does it look like for Rap Index? What are some of the key key things that you're looking to accomplish going into this new year?
Well, for one thing, we took kind of the 2020 as a way where we knew things were slowing down for people and they weren't really making as many commitments. Associations obviously have been hit pretty hard, which frankly makes our value even more important because they don't have the staffing that they may have had. So we've taken that time to add some new features. We're rolling out a new feature for an alerts program so that clients are able to target what officials they are monitoring, and they are targeting on particular issues, whether it's officials or committees, and they'll get a update and report anytime we identify a relationship. So not only do they get weekly reports on what their overall database looks like, but they'll be able to target those issues, those particular elected officials, those committees, and then they'll be notified as soon as we've identified a relationship that could be useful to them. We're rolling that out here in the next couple of weeks. We're doing some adjustments to our overall scoring, which I think is going to be very helpful to clients. Right now, our scoring is based on a 0 to 5 range, and it isn't changed until someone takes another survey. Well, one of the things we wanted to do is make that more targeted and more client specific. And so our clients now will be able to get higher scores based on relationships that matter most to them. If they're in agriculture and they have a great relationship with a senator who's in medical affairs, that shouldn't matter. That won't be as valuable to if they find a relationship that's actually in the ag space. And we think that's very important to make it more client specific, more focused. So we're excited about rolling that out. We had some changes in Congress and changes at state houses. Committee assignments are being made. New roles are being given to elected members around the country at all levels. And so now it's time for organizations to figure out where they have opportunity, where they have potential engagement opportunities that they can tap into early on. They can continue to cultivate those relationships, expand those relationships, or more importantly, maybe, is knowing where they don't have relationships and where they need to apply resources in a legislative battle.
I feel like I'm going a step back with this question, but I'm really curious. It seems like this is in some ways competing with with lobbyists and with what they do, but it also sounds like maybe this is a tool that lobbyists should be wanting to use themselves.
Absolutely. And we have some clients whose lobbying team uses this program very effectively and very efficiently. Someone still has to manage this data, and that's important for any public affairs team or governmental affairs team. What we're doing is offering up what, as a 30-year veteran of public affairs, I know what kind of information would make me more effective. That's how we got here. We were hired to do all kinds of programs for other organizations. We recognized sometimes too late that there were valuable relationships that could have had an impact and influence on the outcome. And so we're spoon feeding this back to the client by saying, look at all these assets you have, relational assets, engagement potential, influence potential. And we're giving it to you in a platform that's easy to access, easy to update, make notes, stay on top of the issue, know when the last contact's been made, what the status of that is, and then pulling that relationship that says, okay, you know what? Patrick's his first cousin. Maybe he could make a phone call for us.
Yeah. It's interesting. I think just offline, I want to come back to that sort of channel partner program, because I do feel like if there's anyone with the most to gain, if I'm an organization that's already been hired to move an agenda for a company, that this would be, I'd want this to be one of the arrows in my quiver, so I could go to my client and say, hey, look, if you guys can install RapIndex, we can move a lot quicker here and get, identify those advocates. So I do see an opportunity there. And I want to just talk a little bit about you from an entrepreneurial standpoint. What is your average kind of week look like? And where I'm going is I'm curious how you stay productive. How do you prioritize and know that you're working on the right things, and what does that look like for you? Like how does a week kind of break down, and what are some of the things that you do, some of your routines or habits that you develop to make sure that you're staying on point and productive?
Well, I think a lot of entrepreneurs are a little scatterbrained sometimes, so we have to keep ourselves as organized as possible. I'm a list maker. I try to end every day with a list of what I've got to get to tomorrow. And then I'm great at crossing those off as I get to them. I try to spend some time every day reading and learning about somebody else's perspective on something. It may be 30 minutes, it may be 45 minutes, but it's usually don't get much more time than that. But I'm always trying to find an angle and an edge to help me stay motivated, help me look for a way to understand it from a client's perspective what they're looking for. You can have the greatest product in the world, but if the clients don't see a benefit to them, nobody's going to buy it. So, always looking at ways for our better marketing and messaging and helping our clients understand the value that we bring, but also trying to stay organized and make sure that we're getting in front of the right people, that we're not wasting our time, that we're making an effort to offer a product that is clearly an asset within the overall governmental affairs process.
Got it. I'm curious if you have any, kind of like I'm sure you've got many of them, because I personally have a stack, but do you have things that are maybe some of the best advice that either you've received or that you've given, or kind of like a way that, something that influences the way that you operate, that either someone imparted on you years ago or that, you live by? Do you have some kind of advice that that is a guiding principle of sorts, or anything that you run with?
That's an interesting question. I'm very stubborn by nature, and I think I was shaped by a health challenge I had when I was 17 years old, where I had to have open heart surgery right after I graduated from high school. I played high school basketball with a 60% shunt in my heart, not realizing at that time how serious it was, knowing it was there, but I really very desperately wanted to be on that basketball court. And I was so tired at night that I couldn't even take a shower for an hour after I got through with practice because I'd been running suicides. I think those kinds of things shape you. I believe life's more about reaction sometimes than action, and how you respond to adversity and how you respond to challenges. For me, don't let them, what's the old line? And you probably can't use this in this video, but don't let the bastards get you down. There's a lot of bastards out there, and they'll poo-poo your idea, and they'll find reasons why something's not good. But if you believe in it in all your heart, and you've come to that realization through reasonable thought, not just whimsically, then you got to persevere.
That is a great story, a great perspective. I agree with you 100%. The one, I've heard it said that life is 10% what happens to you and 90% how you react. I think it's something along those lines.
Exactly.
That's good stuff. And what else should we know about Chip and Rap Index, and how can we help, and also how should people get a hold of you if they're interested in talking to Chip and Rap Index?
I think what's important to realize about this platform and this offering, we talk a lot about relationships, but I think it's important for organizations that are looking to be more efficient and more effective to understand that the data that we're able to capture in about a 5 to 7 minute objective interview can assist in governmental affairs, can assist in your communications effort, can assist in growing your political action committee, can assist in business development by finding the relationships that could be important to you. I think that's important. We do find key relationships, but we do a whole lot more. We find a whole lot more in a short period of time that is very valuable overall to an organization. I can be reached at a couple of ways. Chip at Rap Index. Of course, you can take a look at our website, rapindex.com, rapindex.com. And we would love to have an opportunity to talk with folks and see if we're a good fit.
Awesome. Well, Chip, thank you again for the time.